Once upon a time, there was love. And love was everything. Out of love, darkness was created. And love liked what it saw and called it Lilith. Then, out of the darkness, the light was created. Once again, love saw that it was good, and it separated the light from the darkness and called it God. Together, Lilith and God, eternal darkness and light, completed each other, and this miracle of oneness was love itself. As the two of them mated, knowing each other deeper and deeper, Lilith challenged God to expand in order to reveal his light within her and for her. She often teased her lover. "My beloved knight, how can I know that you truly love me? What can you create for me to prove the magic and power of your love for me?" And nothing pleased God more than to be her divine hero and provide for her anything that she desired. 6 times Lilith came and dared God to attest his love to her. "I need a home, a place to dwell and reign," Lilith whispered into God's ear, her long silky hair tickling his neck. And God created for her the earth and the heavens. "I would love to adorn our home with intricate textures and fixtures," Lilith kissed him on the cheek as she gazed into his ardent eyes. And God separated the waters, dried the land, and brought the stars, sun, and moon forward. "I yearn to cook fancy meals for you and to indulge and explore the palette of tastes with you." Lilith smiled, resting her head on God's strong shoulder as they lazed in bed. And God gave the earth the herbs and fruits, each with its own unique taste, seed, and purpose. "We need friends, my dear, to keep us company at dinners and in leisure time." Lilith rubbed her thigh against God's, holding him gently by the chin. And God created animals, fish, birds, angels, fairies, and all other visible and invisible creatures that have filled the earth, water, and the sky. "Make me children, my Lord, as a symbol of our unity." Lilith was suddenly very deep and serious, and as she embraced God's chest, tears of joy and humbleness brought luminosity to her darkness. And God created a man in his own image, male and female, son and daughter. Lilith's final request was the most peculiar of all. "My darling," she started as she was massaging God's feet and anointing them with oil, "you have created such a beautiful world for me. However, while I cherish the opportunity to reveal your blessed light infinitely within myself, as well as to continuously guide all of our children and friends on the same task, I feel that I'm spreading myself very thin between keeping this place in order and tending to everyone's needs. I can't do it alone anymore. Please, create me a helper who would self-regulate the light and the darkness within each one of your creations." And God created Ego. As he stood back to look at his final project, he took such pride and attachment toward his most unusual creation that he decided to not only instill it in every physical and celestial inhabitant that he created, but also inside of himself and Lilith. When Lilith came for the 7th time, she stayed with God to honor her majestic beloved, to make divine love to him, to enjoy the beauty and perfection of everything he has created for her, to express her gratitude and devotion to her soulmate. It was an enchanted moment of complete harmony. Male and female, light and dark, and both were connected as a resilient whole of existence. And they could live happily ever after. But sadly, the creations often overpower their creators. As ego grew and strengthened, so did its powers and effects. Slowly, Lilith started to drift away from God, indulging in the endless redecoration of her home, chasing her new friends, experimenting with nature, and spoiling the children. Her ego let her reshuffle her priorities, and God, the ultimate creator of everything she was grossly enjoying, was no longer number one on her priority list. As God grew lonely without Lilith, his ego allowed him to become jealous, suspicious, and nagging. The two of them found themselves in arguments more often than not. The arguments progressed into fights, and the fights morphed into power struggles and competition. That which was intended by ego's original script as a test of unity between two deities turned into a shattering chaos. One night, Lilith came to God for the 8th time and requested proof of his love once again. But God's ego turned everything upside down. "No," God replied impatiently to his bride. "I have created enough for you. It's impossible to satisfy you or to keep you happy. You're just too much for me." "Oh, really?" Lilith's ego threw a tantrum as well. "Well, I think you just can't handle me anymore. And that's the only divine truth around here. And if you have become so weak that you can't be with me as I am, I'm leaving you. I have plenty of friends to entertain myself with, and I don't need a selfish male in my life." And with that, she walked away. God was devastated by Lilith's words and actions. He created the rain and he cried his heart out. And at that pivotal moment, in the heat of some short-lived emotions of grief, he surrendered to his ego. He instantly decided that he would demonstrate to Lilith that he was almighty. He would show her that nothing and no one could come close to the immensity of his powers. At that same sad moment, and as a result of a trick of ego, God forgot that he had been created out of love and convinced himself that he was the most preeminent and supreme entity in the whole universe. He convinced himself that he could control love. To test his new identity, God created another world in which everything was very similar to the world that he had created for Lilith, except for two things. He created the man using the energy of his children, but made him out of dust, and whereas Lilith and her darkness were made first by love in order for God to emerge and shine his light, the woman, in this instance, was created second. Afterward, God gloomily packed up all of his memories about the unity, happiness, and ecstatic sexual joy he had experienced with Lilith in a relationship of true divine love, and he squished all of these keepsakes into the seed of an apple, the fruit on a tree of good and evil, or tree of God and live, effectively erasing Lilith from his aching heart. He then concentrated all of his care and nurturing toward his newly created man and woman, Adam and Eve, trying desperately to protect them from the pain which he had endured himself. He forbade them to eat the fruits from the tree, hoping that they would have been saved from the torture of divine love. When Lilith cooled off and gave her ego a big smack, she desired only one thing: to make peace with God and be one with him again. When she saw God's attentiveness to his new creations, she decided that her only hope to find a way to God's heart again was by revealing the secret of divine love to the man and woman. She thought that through their experience of love, God would soften and surrender to love again. So she turned herself into a snake and goaded Eve into eating from the fruit of the tree. As Eve tasted the apple and shared it with Adam, they both learned the magnitude of heavenly love. But when God found out about their mischief, so many negative emotions rose to the surface that he couldn't cope with their overflow. He became furious with Adam and Eve and their disobedience and Lilith's trickery, and his ego took complete control over him. In his rage, God cursed Eve with pain in childbirth, kicked Adam out of his home, the Garden of Eden, and cast Lilith to earth forever, while he himself decided to occupy the domain of the sky and to never set his foot on the ground. Thus, celestial soulmates, God and Lilith, became separated and never spoke to each other again. There was only one occurrence that God had not anticipated. He could never imagine that Eve, his beloved female creation, the perfected, or simply God-controlled version of Lilith, whom he'd grown very fond of, would choose the man and would follow Adam, leaving God lonely and sobbing for eternity. God never suspected that love would win in the end. When Eve left, God became so upset at love for winning and at ego for triggering him into this whole madness that he removed both of them entirely from the story of creation. He portrayed day one as the work of his own hands, while in all truth love had done it for him. And he never mentioned ego anywhere at all, as it had never existed. There was only one piece of the original story of creation that God could not part with, no matter how hard he tried. He kept the day of rest as a flickering reminder of the time of his delightful unity with his twin flame soulmate, which his mind, his heart, and his soul refused to wipe out. From that point on every Sabbath, God and Lilith have come out of their realms, craving each other, wanting to look at each other in inconsolable silence, remembering the joy and the love they had shared as lovers, friends, and partners, and longing for the kisses and embraces they used to share.